I'm Donna Lampkin-Stevens, and we're back on Spotlight, where we focus on the College of Fine Arts and Communication at the University of Central Arkansas. Thanks for joining us. My guest today is new to Spotlight, but not to UCA. Dr. Deborah Kuster is Associate Professor of Art Education, and she has quite an interesting story. So be sure to join us when we return.
Hi, I'm Bruce Adolph. You probably know me as the piano puzzler on public radio, but I'll be here in Conway for a big fundraiser on March 21st. Bravo, it's called. Fundraiser for the students of the College of Fine Arts and Communications. There'll be cocktail party, dinner right here on the stage of Reynolds, live piano puzzlers, and much more. I hope to see you there.
Joining me now is Dr. Deborah Kuster, Associate Professor of Art Education at UCA. And Deb, welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you. Thank you for asking me.
Well, now, let's start from the beginning. I think you have quite an interesting story. Where did you grow up, and what did you like to do as a young woman, young girl?
All right. I grew up in Dallas, Texas,
Okay.
and I was a maker then, just whatever materials were around. I sewed with my mom, and
So you've
I remember
sewn forever?
I have.
Okay.
And I remember doing stitchery and drawing and painting and just all of the different art media. And I grew up in an athletic family, so I was not normal to them. They didn't know what I was doing.
But you sort of drifted toward the production of really art,
Yes.
even though you weren't maybe thinking about it as art.
Yes,
then.
yes, and designing. Mom and I would design my clothes, and I was sewing
wow.
all my clothes even in middle school. I guess it was junior high then. So yes, my folks did make things, not so much the art end as the craft end.
So
probably
did you drift toward home ec courses, the old?
No, I did not.
You did not?
No.
Okay. But you were sewing your own clothes?
I was,
I'm
not in
envious of
probably
people
the
who can do
correct
that.
way, so that I wouldn't have made it well in the home ec department. I still wouldn't.
So you went off to the University of North Texas
I
to
did.
study art, right?
No, as
Okay.
an undecided major,
Okay.
and it was an art appreciation class that I found
Oh.
my people.
Really?
Yes.
Now see, this is how a gen ed course or a core course can really change
It
somebody's
can.
life.
Yes, and it
Okay.
did that. And then I actually just kind of started in general, even looked at art history, and it required a foreign language and a lot of stuff that was harder for me. And so kind of kept into and floated on into art education. That program, actually, you had a BFA in art and a minor in education is how
Oh,
that
I
degree
see.
worked for me.
Well, let's talk just for a minute before we go further about, so we at UCA offer a BA and a BFA in art. So what's the difference, Bachelor of Arts versus Bachelor of Fine Arts?
The Bachelor of Fine Arts is almost twice as many art hours required, and it is more thinking of a professional artist,
Okay.
a degree to go into grad school or possibly into a graphic design studio. And the BA would be more like a liberal arts degree,
Okay.
with fine arts emphasis.
Okay.
But both of them have, they kind of choose an emphasis of a studio, that if they're going into studio, or they can choose art history or art education.
So we
which is
can
where
get a
mine
BA
is.
or a BFA in art education.
Well, it'll be, actually, I've had two students now. They got two separate degrees. They got a BFA, and then they got a BA
Oh, okay.
with art ed emphasis, yes.
Okay.
And we, Dr. Jeff Young and I we've looked into that because there are, other universities that do it as a BFA, but we haven't gone that far yet.
Okay. And so what did you do then when you newly minted BFA in art education
So I
from
taught
North
public
Texas?
school in the Dallas area.
Little kids, big kids, all?
I actually taught two years in that section, in that kind of stage of my life. I taught 2 years at elementary level and then 2 years at the junior high level.
And which did you prefer?
The junior high level.
Really? I think
Yes.
that's interesting because I did my time as a junior high teacher, and I
Yes.
think people who do that are saints.
Yes, me too. Well, then I had the choice of high school later, and I choose high school.
Okay.
So yes, I hear you. But I did that. I had 10 years with my daughter growing up, as she was younger, and I had a little cottage business. I actually designed and made miniature collectibles that I sold to it was to a wholesaler, but he sold to Michael's and Hobby Lobby and
Oh,
some
really?
of those
Okay.
places. And so I did that with other women making for me the things that I had designed, and did that for 10 years and then returned.
While you were in the public schools?
No, well,
Oh, okay.
I took a breather. I took
Oh,
a
okay.
10-year breather from that.
I
and
see.
then I was able to stay home and work
Okay.
with this.
Okay.
And then returned to teaching in the 90s and taught junior high and high school in a small district, and that was in East Texas, close to Tyler, Texas.
Okay. Okay.
So totally, I have 13 years of art
Okay.
in the public schools.
And at some point you did a master's degree.
I did when I had returned. So, and I did get a master's degree at the University of Texas in Tyler.
And that was in
That
art
was in the
again?
late 90s.
And at what point did you become, as we spoke off camera, a non-traditional graduate student? You became a PhD student.
I did after I blamed my daughter. She left home, got married. What's she doing about that? And I was like, what am I going to do now? So I did. At that time, I had moved to be a curator of education at the Tyler Museum of Art.
Okay.
And that was also a time I was doing a lot of professional development training for teachers. And I think that I loved that part of it too. So I did apply I had got a fellowship at the University of Texas. So I kind of went there for my undergraduate and then back for my doctorate and got that fellowship, which was a wonderful experience. And, it supplied the money for that, for a key part of that degree. So, yes.
Good
So
for
I
you.
was really old.
How long did it take you?
I did it fast. I actually landed this job, and I still had my dissertation to defend
Oh,
my
okay.
first semester here.
Okay.
And so I guess it took me 5.5 years.
Wow, that is fast. And so you came to UCA what year?
Fall of 03.
Okay. Okay. As assistant professor of art education.
Right.
Defended that dissertation. And what was the dissertation in? I'm curious.
It was talking about ways to learn about culture through art. And I
okay.
worked with fifth graders and created a unit. It was also in connection with an exhibit at the Tyler Museum of Art. It was of African American art, the Evans collection. And so, yeah, it was a great combination of working, and I still really have a heart for that, of combining museum with the schools and learning.
Well, it seems like you're a perfect fit. You have a little bit of public. I mean, you know what teachers are going through.
Yes.
You've been through it yourself,
Yes.
and so I think that's a great situation. So how did you make the move from Texas to UCA? Did you apply at other places, or how did what happened?
Yes, that's exactly what I did. That's the first time that I've ever applied for jobs and moved where the job was. I've always
Instead of
lived
just-
someplace and found a job where I lived. So that is exactly what happened. My husband said, "Heck, I'll just retire and we can go wherever you get a job."
Oh.
What a sacrifice!
Oh
right?
yeah. I'll be a house husband.
Yes, yeah. So that is what happened. So we did apply, and I do have family still in East Texas and didn't want to go too far away. So that's kind of part of the
Right.
criteria. But had not, I don't know, I may have been in Arkansas one time as a kid or something, but
Really?
did not know what Conway was or where it was or any of the above. And applied and really liked the whole, yeah.
Good, good. So how have you seen the art department at UCA evolve since you've been here? I think the numbers are probably bigger.
Their numbers are probably bigger. We have a few additional staff, maybe 4 or 5, maybe 3 or 4
Okay.
additional full, tenure faculty members, and it's changed. The art has changed a little bit. When I first came there, it was not a state law to have an elementary art teacher in
And
Arkansas.
that
and
became a law when?
Oh,
Not too
5,
long
I
ago.
believe,
Okay.
just soon after I was here,
Okay.
which was really exciting.
Yeah.
Development. So that did change because
So-
I also teach. Well, that has changed as well. But I also teach a class for elementary, just general elementary majors,
Oh, I see.
and so that took a different slant when they were responsible for teaching art, and then when there would be an art teacher, a specialist in their school, and still wanting them to incorporate art.
good.
So I did see kind of a change in that. But I think one of the biggest changes is I don't have any students that I can think of that want a job that don't have one, because there's just still enough in Arkansas
That's
to take care
amazing.
of our majors.
That's
So that's
great.
an exciting thing.
So, and tell me, what's it like in Texas and other states? Is that a law other places, or are we
No,
ahead of the curve here?
I was told like only 3 or 4 other states have that as a law.
So every school district or school building has to have
Every
an
elementary school building has to have an art teacher. However, some art teachers will travel to 1 or 2 schools.
Right. But that's great, and it's good for the kids, and it's good for the teachers and your students as well.
I think so.
To find jobs.
And I hope that stays. Art department, art sometimes when it gets to be tight,
Right.
budget-wise or something, they think about it. There was a district that I worked with in Tyler, Texas, so it wasn't law, and they put in art teachers, and then they tried to take them away, and there was parents lined out all out the school board meeting. So I do hope that parents also see the importance of having art for their children,
I bet.
especially elementary children. I mean, my
Well,
goodness.
talk about some of those things. What do elementary students get? I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate here, but why have that law?
Well, I really see that art, as an artist, you look at the world, it's just a different way to approach the world. And so for students to think about things visually and how they respond to those things is very important. Art is a representation of cultures since time began. And then it's that creative, open-ended project. There's all these new initiatives about project-based education. I'm like, that's what we do. So I also think that even teachers in schools can see the culture that we have of watching students have more ownership of what they're doing and make more choices in that final outcome. And also our emphasis on the process, not just the product, at the elementary level especially.
Right.
We still try to do that in high school, but there's contests, and I don't know, there's kind of more product oriented by the time your skills have developed.
Right. So what sorts of courses do our art education students take? Do you partner, I would think, with the school, with the
College of Ed,
Education?
definitely.
Okay.
They take several classes there. And then I'm under their certification program. So
Okay.
there's mandates that we have to fulfill for them to be certified. Our students will be it's just changed. It used to be P12. It's actually back to K12 certification when they leave. A lot of field experience. That Dr. Young and I are involved in that. Me the most, since he's also the chair of our department. But they have time in the schools all through our program. But basically, the courses I teach are more the methods of how to teach art, not so much the art making itself. They're getting that in their studio classes that we talk about.
So the art ed students also take studio classes?
Very much so,
Okay.
and art ed. So they
Okay.
take, for just a general BA students, they take 3 more hours of art history than is required. And then their studio is about the same amount as a fine arts major in studio would have.
So it's a very well-rounded degree.
Yes,
Okay.
which makes sense, doesn't it?
Oh
'Cause it
yeah, I
just
mean
very
that's
much
good.
needs
That's
to
great.
be.
But we talked earlier. I think some people think that just because you're an art major that you really are the traditional artist. You're a painter or a sculptor. But as we talked earlier, you don't have to be. You can appreciate art and be an art major and and have a career in art
Yes.
and not really even be able to make art.
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, obviously there's art history. So they are required only, I think, to take maybe 6, maybe 9 hours of studio art. So they are not. That is not theirs. It's more the art history component, and that could go into museum work. There's art critics. There's a lot of various avenues to still be an art lover and art appreciator and have a degree in that area and research. And then art education is the other emphasis, which, like we said, has to be well-rounded and have on both. But sometimes the art major, I get kind of my feathers ruffled a little bit because sometimes people think that the art ed people may not be as talented in the studio art.
I bet some people do think that.
And that I think that you could still be a very good art teacher and not be an exceptional artist.
Right.
And really prone to just be driven by that. And I would put myself in that category through my years because I did find just as much satisfaction in just being a part of that creative process. So in some ways, I know more how to go about being an artist, maybe, just because
Sure.
I had to teach that than maybe doing it myself, because
Right.
time and energy just doesn't allow you to do everything extraordinarily well. So I have different teachers now in the field, kind of in different ways. Some are still very much making it and in shows, and some are very much, have a family and then they just teaching is their job, but they love it, and they may change at another stage of their life.
Exactly,
So,
like you did.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So tell us about your own art. You said you were a maker from a young child, but what
I
all have you
am.
done?
Well, so as a high school teacher, I can do everything reasonably well because I had to teach everything, and but I do like hands-on. I think I was still more drawn to the hands-on, so ceramics as a teacher, and more of the 3D kind of putting things together, assemblage was more of an attraction. I then also took, during my master's degree, I took a weaving class.
You've never been a weaver?
Had never been a weaver, and this was actually, well, I guess as an undergrad I took an off-the-loom fibers class, so we did basketry type techniques. Then I was on the loom as a master's, and it was one of those moments where I said, man, I wish I had learned this, because I was 20 years ago, because I could have really run with this. This is a fit. The other I loved, but this is a fit. So I did begin to weave, and then a little frustration there because I just had all of these weavings, and I didn't know really what to do with them. They weren't like artworks. They were just yardage sometimes, or rugs or something, and it was fine. I loved it, but
loved it, but
it wasn't quite meeting all of my artistic goals, or I don't know, challenges, maybe is the word. I wasn't challenged anymore. And I just began to, I just gathered all these things out, and I just started cutting them up and started assembling them. So that's where that kind of idea of a quilt comes, because they are pieced together like a quilt. They're not all just woven into the exact artwork that I want. And it was like, oh my gosh, because I just had never really seen that done. So
you had made the...
So I wove the material, I wove them, but now I'm cutting up my weavings.
And then turning them into quilts.
And piecing them together. And so that, yes, and because they really kind of need a backing for support, it becomes basically a quilt-like structure. And so that, and it was just quite fun. That was like, oh, this is it.
So when did you discover this?
So I'm Grandma Moses. She was, I forgot what she was. I think she was 70 with her first exhibit, and I may just get there, her first one-lady show. I started doing this, I think my very first one was 2005.
Okay, so you'd been here a couple years.
I had.
Okay.
And then it was here, when I was here.
And you've shown your work, and you've got, as we tape this, there's a show
in Little Rock at the Butler Center, there at the River Market. And that was me being invited to be part of this Women to Watch that the Arkansas chapter of the National Women's Museum that's in D.C. And I was invited for that, so that was quite extraordinary. I think some of that was Carolyn Brown was the curator of that, and she had worked for the Arkansas Arts Center, and had actually won an award in the Delta Show several years ago when she was there. And I'm thinking that maybe that was what gave her recognition, gave my name kind of to her. So I have been in the Delta Show a couple of years. I haven't entered that much. I don't make a lot of these because I do sometimes want to weave more things to put in my ideas now for the so-called quilts, and so and I'm doing other things. So my scholarship here is still scholarly writings and manuscripts. So I'm still doing research as well as doing my creative activity. So I'm kind of...
Boy, you're busy.
I'm busy. Yeah. Just going back and forth.
Now, I noticed you teach a fibers class.
I do.
Tell us about that.
That is more the flavor of what I had done as an undergraduate too, off the loom, because we don't have looms. And so we are creating forms. They get three-dimensional 3D credit because we divided up in the 2D art and the 3D art forms for their degrees. And so they're building sculptural forms with traditional basketry techniques. So I teach coiling and twining and crochet, and then they also can research another technique and do it. So it's really broad. It can be with fibrous materials that we do something.
They pick? The students pick?
Lot, yes. Okay. There's a lot of picking. They can use fibrous materials, such as fabric or leaves or, grasses or those kind of things that we think of fiber. But they can use things that aren't thought of like fiber, but use the technique that's traditionally a fiber technique. So you can kind of go different directions. So no, it's really fun right now. I just left that class. I had one student on the ground with huge twigs. She had a huge mess because they were all like just falling apart, and she was twining them together. And then another one just had some little wire and some little teeny things, and she was over there working. So I mean, there just was a huge variety of different materials being worked with for that one.
Great imagination. I'm sure you enjoy just watching.
It's good
to see what comes.
Yes, yeah. I enjoy teaching. I think it's good for students because they do get to choose other materials. There's more choices in materials. Like when you're painting, you don't choose
Right,
materials, you
right,
choose
right.
colors and techniques. But here they're being able to choose materials to express, to communicate what they're wanting to say.
Now, tell us about the yarn bombing a few years ago. We saw
Wasn't
that in
that-
downtown
yes.
Conway and all over the campus. So talk
Yeah,
about
was
that a
so
little
much
bit.
fun.
Explain what it was, in case somebody is not familiar.
Well, the idea of art bombing is kind of like graffiti with the yarn.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not really hurting anything, but you'll go and sneak it and leave, you know, kind of a thing. So we did have Magda Sayeg.
Yes, yes, yes.
I said her name correctly. Magda.
This was several years ago.
It was. She was coming as a visiting artist, and Barbara Satterfield, I think, was responsible for coming up with all that. We had a graffiti show in the Bomb Gallery as well, so that was a great connection, and I was teaching fibers at the time. So we did, and so that's what Magda did. She was out of Boston, and she had become quite, and there was just kind of a trend of doing this. I mean, they would like go out and do parking meters all along a city street, and sometimes they got permission. It wasn't like they were really doing the kind of graffiti you can be arrested for. So anyway, we decided to do a bombing on the campus, and that was right when we were becoming a non-smoking campus, and so we bombed the little smoker things that were all around campus and covered them, and that was just really fun. It was just really fun.
How has becoming this fiber artist, how has that changed your teaching? I mean, I would think that you're sort of a different kind of teacher now because of that.
I think so too. I think because I want to teach the creative process, it really very much helps for me to be a part of that too. And then I can also use personal, stories of when I got frustrated or how I wandered into this. I think I do. I think just being an older person, that is one thing I believe I offer my students in all the areas that I teach.
Yes.
So teaching fibers and then being able to be working as an artist and still growing. But I'm hoping that I'm an example of life of, you have different focuses. It doesn't all happen at once. And so then I'm a teacher, and I'm still in the schools observing my students' teachers. So there's just always this continual experience. But you just kind of find a way for things to mesh together. And so I kind of want to encourage students with that
Good.
just doesn't all have to happen at once.
Simultaneously.
Yes, exactly.
Now, your show at the Butler Center will end in a few days.
It does.
Perhaps
I believe
before this airs.
Yes.
But there's another show coming to the
There
River Market.
is. I'm a regional rep for an organization called Studio Art Quilts Associates, SAQA, so we say SAQA. And so we have a show that will be at the Butler Center as well. This is just kind of weird because the one that's there now did tour all around the state. It just ended up at the Butler Center. This one that we're having will just be there. But it opens on the second Friday Art Walk, that Little Rock. If you've not ever done that, it's really fun. It'll be March the 14th, yes.
And it will run, do you know how long?
Through May, I think May 25th, actually.
Okay, great. Is it the same stuff that's in the show now?
Oh, no,
or
it's
different?
no, it's different.
Tell us what you're going to have there.
I have two. This was juror'd. The other one was just curated. The one that's there now, just a slight difference of kind of one. Yeah. So the juror of this one chose two of my works, and they are real recent. Some of my more recent ones. So I didn't even have them as a choice for the curator in the show that's there now. One's really fun. It's taken from a quote from my 4-year-old grandson when he was only maybe 2.5, and he's our jokester, but he did a knock-knock joke. We were just saying jokes around the table, and anyway, he was hearing chicken crossing the road and knock-knock jokes. So it was a knock-knock, who's there? He says chicken, and we said chicken who? He looks around and goes, chicken bathtub. I mean, they just don't make it. And we just died laughing. So he thought he was the greatest joke maker of the world.
Of course.
So he kept saying that joke anytime you could have a joke. So anyway, it's my chicken bathtub quilt.
It is a quilt. Okay, great.
It is.
What is it? Can you tell us about it?
It's got a chicken in a bathtub, and I put some chicken. It's just hilarious. And to me, it just makes me laugh because he makes me laugh.
Good,
but I actually put some chicken wire over it, and so yes.
Oh, great.
But it has my weavings, and it does
Okay.
have. And then another one. Then there's another one that is called "A Cord of Three Strands is Not Easily Broken," And this was actually a friend that had a show in her studio, and she asked for us to contribute. And it was called, I forgot what it was called,
Okay.
but it had to do with strands.
Yes.
And so that made me just think of that quote from Ecclesiastes. So that was kind of a new angle that I may kind of go into as well, of not just grandkid quotes, but just kind of more profound.
Excellent, excellent. Now, you also have taken a different role with the Instructional Development Center this year, and we're probably going to run out of time, but so we may have you back to talk about that at some point. But basically, what does the IDC do, and why is it important on this campus?
The IDC is a wonderful organization. Patty Phelps actually was telling me that she wrote that grant to get that started, or was one of the ones that did. But it is to support faculty in the needs that they might have as a teacher.
Because most people on this campus, unlike you and me, did
Right.
not come here with teaching experience, certainly
Right.
not in public schools. And
Right, they come with knowledge
Right.
and being experts in their field, but having not realized, and that can be a detriment in some ways, because you just don't remember what it was like to not know so much.
Right.
I remember what it was like, but yeah, so they can become disillusioned, and so it's
Sure.
ways to
It's
support,
hard.
but it's totally driven by faculty sharing, and it's also, we need the camaraderie. So it's faculty sharing things that they've learned with each other. It's a time to kind of have book groups where you can be learning together and share those ideas, but it's faculty driven. They choose things that they would like to have help with. You know, there's some certain programs that we have, but it's all just totally voluntary of hoping that we can meet
It's a
their
resource.
needs. It is.
And your role is what now?
I'm called faculty coordinator, one of them, and I deal more with the what we call on-ground teaching now, as opposed to internet
Okay.
web-based courses.
Which are completely different.
It is real
Yeah.
different. I mean, there's still a lot of the same things, but a lot of differences. So I sometimes can consult with faculty, but then I lead the teaching portfolio for instructors to learn how to kind of put together evidence of their abilities of teaching and their growth. And then teacher observation, where teachers, I still kind of sound like I'm in high school, don't I? Where instructors can pair up with another one and watch each other teach, and then talk about that later, which is a great thing to be doing too. And then the book groups, like I said, I will usually lead one of those. We have teaching circles now. You know, we have lunch times where speakers come, but I do mainly coordinating those that we talked about.
And
Not as an expert in any way, but just one that.
A resource, though.
But as a resource.
And you started that when? This
It's
January?
my third year.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that. I
Yeah.
thought it was a new. Okay.
It is.
And you
This is
enjoy
my
that?
third
and
year.
That's good.
I do. I'm feeling more
good.
comfortable with it now. You know, it's like, who am I or
Yeah.
something, and it's still who am
I
I.
think your qualifications are great.
But I still enjoy it a lot.
Well,
And
Deb, we'll have you back on another time to talk about some of these other things. And I learned a lot about you, and I'm keep up that good art making. I mean, I think that's
Thank you.
exciting.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you for having me.
We'll be back in a moment.
Hi, I'm Bruce Adolph. You probably know me as the piano puzzler on public radio, but I'll be here in Conway for a big fundraiser on March 21st. Bravo, it's called. Fundraiser for the students of the College of Fine Arts and Communications. There'll be cocktail party, dinner right here on the stage of Reynolds, live piano puzzlers, and much more. I hope to see you there.
For more information about the programs and people featured on the show, call the College of Fine Arts and Communication at 501-450-3293 or check out our website, www.uca.edu/CFAC, and we're also on Facebook. We'll be back again next time on Spotlight, so please join us then.